there are 1.3 million active duty military personnel in the United States, while there are 1.4 million OnlyFans creators in this country. This means that there are more OnlyFans creators in this land, and it's becoming a phenomenon. At least that's what the statistics report. And I was trying to understand why. How do you explain this? Well, one way to approach this is that OnlyFans creators have compromised their morals for monetary gains because they feel that they were not rewarded with a satisfactory amount of financial compensation. And according to this perspective, that's how the decision was made. Some people have chosen to create the extra spicy YouTube membership content. And I shouldn't be the only one questioning this, because earlier when I came to the US, my Instagram feed was somehow flooded with OnlyFans advertisements. Well, it doesn't really happen anymore, thankfully. I think because now I just watch micro dramas in Korean or Japanese, so that content, which is almost always in English, isn't recommended anymore, but it still shows up sometimes when I am doom scrolling. So maybe it has something to do with the algorithm allegedly recommending them to me. But if you think from their perspective, the fact that they can use all social media platforms means they can leverage them as their best advertisement channels. They're making a fortune. And if you have seen famous OnlyFans creators like Miss Phillips or Miss Blue literally sleeping with 1,000 people, there has to be something very different in their individual minds. But I see it as a qualitative outburst from the sea of all OnlyFans creators, you know what I mean? I think it's an evolved version of the overarching psyche, and they're evolving and transforming the game into a completely different thing. Like, what's the maximum you can push here? I think all the cards have been already played. We saw many people, we saw barely legal age college kids, and so what's next? Care homes? Anyways, I saw Miss Blue buying a blue supercar, which is very iconic. Imagine you work really hard, put in extra hours, perfect your career, got promoted, earn massive paychecks, and then when you reach around 55 or something and finally fulfill your childhood wish to own a supercar, you're hit with an insult saying, well, now you have just achieved what Body Blue has achieved. So ideally, material compensation is supposed to reward the amount of contribution you've made to the society, and no one would say an OnlyFans creator makes the same level of contribution as, for example, a person who revolutionized the entire plumbing industry in a city. So ideally, if you're familiar with pragmatism and its philosophical writings, valuable contributions will manifest in the form of appropriate rewards, and I don't think anyone would complain about that ideally. Like, hey, someone did more work and therefore more people are benefiting from that work, so why wouldn't you reward it more and give it a prize and further incentivize the contribution? But we can see that material reward as a metric of proper contribution has some fragility. But I would also argue that just because it has some fragility doesn't mean it can be completely dispensed with. But it surely requires some sort of self-discernment in this case. I think the fundamental question here is that pragmatism, or the system in which monetary compensation functions as a metric for the value of someone's time and energy, is fundamentally relativistic and pluralistic. So sure, there are, a million ways to be successful, so it gives hope, but the tuning process hurts because it's not as reasonable. We seem to think, hey, I earn more than you, therefore my worth in this free market society is valued more than you. So sure, good for you. I mean, that is a very easy way to assess something, but without proper discernment, your work is destined to be equated with this lady sleeping with 1,000 people. And sure, it's the easiest way to generate fortune for some people, and that's why pragmatism requires calibration, something like a moral pillar. So on the conservative side of the political aisle, roughly, Christian doctrines against promiscuity serve as this moral pillar, saying, hey, OnlyFans is unethical, and it works fantastically well combined with the pragmatism argument. Well, all the cheaters don't count, and once unethical shortcuts are all excluded, it becomes clearer why surgeons, for example, earn more than teachers. Both roles are extremely valuable, but a surgeon's work involves greater risk and complexity, therefore earning higher compensation. But if you don't have that moral grounding or a pillar, source of standard of morality, then you will need too many plasters and band-aids to put on the scars of pragmatism, because it's very hard to deeply root our value system. So yes, it's interesting, and the fact that the creation of pornography is illegal in my country somewhat alleviates the dilemmas about constructing morality if legal issues were lifted, because they are somewhat different. But these sorts of problems are multifaceted and they exist everywhere in different forms. So we'll have to talk about these sorts of things forever to embed our roots firmly in the ground. Maybe that's one benefit of sending kids to mission schools, especially if you cannot argue your way up to the justification of the moral aspects addressed in religious environments. I hope this video was thought-provoking, and if you have comments, please leave them in the comment section, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.